Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma Keys. I am a personal trainer, fitness instructor, competitive powerlifter and nutrition coach. If you've been watching my previous videos, you will already know that I've been covering some strength training basics last week. If you want to go back and watch that video, I'll leave a tag up here. It was strength training terminology. This week, what I want to talk about is equipment for strength training. It's probably one of the things I'm asked about the most, obviously outside of lifting itself. So I thought we would go over the basics and cover if you need them in the beginning or not. And we're going to establish what you might need to get as a beginner. The first thing you're going to need to invest in is a notebook. It's really important that you are tracking your weights as you go, you're tracking your workouts, tracking energy levels. They are really important pieces of information that you're going to need to give to your coach so they're able to plan for the future. And it's also nice to look back on things that you may have achieved, new weights that you may have lifted. So I would definitely recommend in buying a notepad first. That should probably be priority number one if you are a beginner. Also, you're going to need a bag to be able to keep all your stuff in. Might sound simple, but sometimes you might not think of those smaller things. You kind of might rush to the more advanced pieces of equipment like the ones we're going to touch on later on in this video, but I would definitely recommend a good bag. One that's big enough that you're able to fit all your equipment in, but nothing too big that's going to be inconvenient for you to be carrying around. Chalk is another thing that you might need to considering purchasing, especially with the way things have gone with COVID. You're not really going to want to share with anyone else. You can buy cheap blocks of chalk online. You can get it in powdered form, you could get it in liquid form. Whichever one you decide to purchase is going to be down to what you prefer the feel of. But I definitely would encourage you to experiment maybe and try some different types and just pick one that you like and stick with it. But definitely coming into the summer months, I know we're not living in a very hot country, but hands definitely do get a little bit sweatier during the summer and the bar is going to become really hard to hold, especially if we don't have a rough knurling on it. So definitely invest in some chalk. With shoes, we would recommend a flat-soled shoe for a beginner. Something like Converse or Vans. They provide good grip and it is essential for lifters to be able to feel the floor. Now, feeling the floor is a term that we'll go through in later videos, but what's most important here is the grip. It's going to be able to help you focus on your balance and stability, as well as being comfy and kind of cool looking. They provide support by being able to hug the foot as well as still being made out of flexible material. What we don't really want to see someone lifting in is a running shoe. Soft, cushioned running shoes are on the opposite end of the spectrum to lifting shoes. You might not think it will make a big difference, but it can significantly impact on your performance in the gym. Running shoes don't allow for a solid base for you to be able to balance and remain stable under a heavy load. And with a greater risk of instability comes a greater risk of injury. For example, if you squat on an unstable surface, the knees can tend to cave in, which will put them under increased pressure. If you are unsure as to what footwear you should buy and you want to start sooner rather than later, socks can also be okay. You just want something that's going to be able to keep your foot completely flat. If you're starting to get a little bit more serious about your lifting, then you're probably considering a squat shoe. You will need to invest in a good quality squat shoe, but if this is your first pair, I wouldn't really recommend spending too much money on them. Maybe buy a slightly cheaper shoe just at the beginning, just to make sure that that particular shoe suits the way that you move and that you enjoy how it feels. Squat shoes are great for stability and being able to generate force through the feet, and this is due to their hard and rigid sole. In a squat shoe, you're going to find it a lot easier to be able to keep your feet completely flat and in contact with the floor throughout the whole lift. And again, you're going to be able to feel the floor with your feet a bit better in something that is flat and rigid. As a result, your movement pattern is going to become more consistent and you're going to be able to do a better job of keeping your ankles and knees aligned. Squat shoes also have a raised heel. This is going to allow a massive advantage for people who do struggle with their mobility. It will allow you to descend into a deeper squat position through increased ankle mobility. Even though it might provide some lifters with an advantage, we would still recommend that you might work on your mobility first. If there is an issue there, pieces of equipment can be great for aiding movements, but it's not going to fix any problems that you might have. So if you're buying them to increase your range of motion through squatting, I would recommend working on your mobility first. While knee sleeves are not essential, they do become more important the more serious you get about your lifting. They provide compression to keep the knee warm and to protect from impact. If lifting regularly, your knees will come under continuous and frequent stress. While this doesn't really have to be a bad thing, it's probably best that we protect them to the best of our ability from the very beginning. Knee sleeves won't fix poor technique, but what they are going to do is provide a layer of protection. This is going to keep you in a better position for you to be able to stabilize yourself correctly under the bar. The purpose of wrist wraps is to be able to provide support to the wrist joint. This is going to be for heavy lifts and under max loads. You will probably see them most when people are benching, but they can be also used for squats and deadlifts. It's mainly down to the lifter's preference. During bench especially, they stop the wrist from extension and flexion, and they will be able to keep it in a better stable position. And further down the line, if that extension happens on a consistent basis, it may result in some complications. Wrist wraps are not going to fix poor technique, so you need to be aware of your wrist position throughout all lifts at all times. Last but not least, the belt. The more lifting experience you get under your imaginary belt, you're probably going to have to start considering purchasing a real one. See what I did there?
Wow.
The longer you are lifting, whether you will need one or not is going to come down to personal preference. But if you want to purchase a lifting belt and it's your first belt, I would probably recommend investing in a Velcro belt. It's going to be a little bit cheaper and it's going to be made out of a more flexible material, so it's going to be a little bit more forgiving at the start, which will give you a better opportunity to be able to get used to the feeling of it. It's going to fit really easily around the body while still providing an adequate layer of support. Wearing a belt can greatly increase core stabilization, and it's going to allow you to create more intra-abdominal pressure through breathing by pushing your abs against the belt. So those are my top picks for anyone who is considering strength training. All of those things are not essential in the beginning. If you are a beginner, the only things I would recommend you getting are a notepad, a bag, a pair of shoes like Converse or Vans, and also maybe some chalk. The more serious you get about your lifting and the longer you are doing it, then I would recommend the things like maybe a pair of squat shoes, knee sleeves, wrist wraps, belt. I know it can be tempting sometimes when you see people with certain pieces of equipment in the gym. Improving at strength training should be a long-term goal. So you have loads of time to buy new things, buy new pieces of equipment. So I wouldn't rush into any of the more advanced options just at the beginning. But if you're really eager to get started and get going, then these things aren't necessarily essential. You can just start with whatever you have at home. If you're thinking about buying a piece of equipment and you're just not really sure what to do, then head over to my Instagram, send me a message with the link of what you wanted to purchase. I would be more than happy to help you in making that decision. If you feel like there's something that I might have left out, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know and we can add that to the list. I'm going to add some links in the description below to some options of the equipment that I have listed. If you have made it to the end, don't forget to like this video. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, then please subscribe to my channel. It would mean a lot and it would really help my channel grow. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and I will see you again next week.